he meant to us, what a loving, big-hearted man he was. Someone who would do anything to help you and never ask you to help him. Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for your love, and we thank you for a promise of eternity through your Son, Jesus Christ. Lord, bless Tony's family, special blessings on Barbara and Bridget and Brooke and all of the family and all of his classmates from 85 and his friends and loved ones. Lead, guide us, forgive us of our sins. In Christ Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Michael Anthony Tony Beard was a passionate man. Whether he was cheering for the Cowboys, listening to his favorite bands, doting on his two daughters, catching horror flicks, or testing out new hot sauces, Tony gave his all to everything he did. Tony was born April 27th, 1967, to Jimmy and Barbara Beard. He grew up in Van Alstyne, Texas, and graduated from Van Alstyne High School, class of 1985, where he played baseball. He once threw a perfect game during Pony League when he was 13 years old, landing a spot in the local paper and found a passion for heavy metal music. After high school, he and his lifelong friend, Tony Streetman, moved to Los Angeles for several years before he returned to North Texas to start an auto body shop, Van Body Shop, where he worked alongside his father and his employer and friend for over 20 years, Romero Perez. Settling down in nearby McKinney, he married his former wife, Shannon Harrell, and had two daughters, Brooke Elizabeth Beard and Bridget Aaron Beard Fisher. His time was filled with coaching his daughter's softball games, attending countless soccer games and school activities, daily coffee with friends, lunches, and his mother, and spending time with friends and family. Tony, 57, of Van Alstyne, Texas, passed away on July 2024. He was survived by his mother, Barbara Aaron Beard of Van Alstyne, Texas, his daughter and son-in-law, Bridget Aaron Beard Fisher, and Curtis Fisher of Paris, Texas. His daughter, Brooke Elizabeth Beard of Plano, Texas, and his cat, Bordeaux Booty Beard. He is preceded in death by his father, Jimmy Beard of Van Alstyne, Texas. We'll have a song now.
I said, Grandpa, what's this picture here? It's all black and white. It ain't real clear. Is that you there? He said, yeah, I was a-lovin'. Time for tough, back in 35. That's me and Uncle Joe just trying to survive a cotton farm in the Great Depression. If it looks like we were scared to death, like a couple of kids just trying to save each other, you should have seen it in color. Oh, and this one here was taken overseas in the middle of hell in 1943, wintertime. see my breath. That was my tail gunner, old Johnny McGee. He was a high school teacher from New Orleans, and he had my back right through the day we left. Yeah, it looks like we were scared to death, like a couple of kids just trying to save each other. You should have seen it in color. A picture's worth 1,000 words, but you can't see what those shades of gray keep covered. You should have seen it in color. This one is my favorite one. This is me and Grandma and the summer sun, all dressed up the day we said our vows. Can't tell here, but it was hot that June. That rose was red and her eyes were blue. And just look at that smile, I was so proud. That's the story of my life, right there in black and white. And it looks like we were scared to death, like a couple of kids just trying to save each other. You should have seen it in color. Yeah, pictures worth 1,000 words, but you can't see what those shades of gray keep covered. You should have seen it in color. You should have seen it in color. Yeah, pictures worth 1,000 words, but you can't see what those shades of gray keep covered. You should have seen it in color.
Monday, when we found Tony, it was a very hard time. And one Bible verse I kept repeating over and over to myself. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And I told Barbara that when she asked me to read it. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pasture. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And when I go to that house, I'll see Tony.
Okay, this is going to be tough. So, this song meant a lot to Tony, and I spoke to Shannon about it this morning, and thought that maybe I should play it. I've never played it until today, so forgive me, one, if I start crying, because that's possibly going to happen, and forgive me, two, because I've just learned this song yet. So, here we go.
Okay, so I asked a bunch of friends and classmates, and we were all classmates, 1985, 84, 86, 83, we were all, it was such small schools, so we all knew each other. And so they sent some stories about Tony. Lifelong friend. When asked to come up with a Tony story to share, I quickly realized there is no way I could only come up with one. There are so many that come to mind. Tony has always been somewhat of a jokester and was very witty. Very rarely would someone get the last laugh on him. This brings to mind two stories. To this day, I tell people all the time. The first was back in high school, Texas history class. Our teacher was Coach Luttrell. He would always take jabs at people to lighten the mood in his class. This was on a Monday when he decided that today he would try and lighten the mood with Tony. You see, back then there was a small circus that would come to town and set up through the weekend and then move on to the next small town. So Coach said to Tony, "Tony, I thought I seen the last of you when the circus left town." Tony, being so witty, immediately came right back with, "Well, Coach, I thought I saw the last of you when I flushed the toilet this morning." Of course, the whole class burst out in laughter, including Coach Luttrell. Another was also in high school English class with Mrs. Tooley as our teacher. Some things weren't included, Chris. We had a test that day, and Tony had written some of the answers on his tennis shoe. As we were taking the test, Tony would cross his legs, glance at his shoe, and put it back on the floor. I guess Mrs. Tooley realized what he was doing and asked, "Tony, what is on your tennis shoe?" Tony looked at his shoe and quickly replied, "Nike." Mrs. Tooley wasn't going to leave it at that and asked, "What else is written on your shoe, Tony?" Tony, being as quick as he was, replied, "Mrs. Tooley, I am trying to take a test right now. If you want to know what's written on a pair of Nikes, you better go get you a pair." Tony has been a lifelong friend, I guess since we were 4 years old. In the last 20 years or so, we have this common bond, restoring things back to their original condition or better. Whether it was cars, old coat boxes, or one of Tony's unique projects, an old Indian statue, we would discuss the challenges and rewards this type of work brought to us. I would listen to his experiences and he would listen to mine, having conversations about straightening frames or body panels, new products or techniques, and what would work for us in general. These were great conversations we would have because we knew exactly what each other was talking about. I will forever miss these times we spent together, and I will surely forever miss my friend. David Rogers. Ronnie Hurst. I'm terrible at stories, but my favorite memory of him is skipping school and hanging out at Six Flags with him. We had a blast, but the thing many from school will remember is that was the day he picked out those red parachute pants, crazy shirt, and handcuffs, and somehow made an outfit out of it. He was the talk of school for days. All right, this is to Brooke and Bridget. I'm not a 1985 graduate of Valentine High School. I'm a 1980. I should have put his in here. I'm a 1980 graduate of Anna High School. I guess you could say I'm married into the Valentine class of 85. I will be always grateful to your dad and his friends who accepted my wife, Greta, into their lives after losing her dad at 9 years old. They treated her as a sister, watched over and protected her. But I knew your dad differently than his friends he grew up with. I knew your dad as a true American craftsman. Your dad took a craft that was handed down to him by his father, your grandfather. He honed and perfected his craft. He could take a bent, broken, scratched, warped, and stretched piece of metal and hammer and shape it back into its original form. Then he could sand, paint, and polish it so you'd never see that it had been damaged. Your dad was a true artisan of his craft, an American craftsman. Sincerely, Charles A. Adams. This is from Tina Brown. For about 3 years, my summer job was babysitting Tony while Barbara and Jimmy were at work. At the time, they lived up the street from Tom Apsey's house at one end, and James, Billy, Wesley, and Glenda Cook lived at the other end of the street. It was one of the easiest jobs because Tony was always playing outside with the neighborhood kids, and he always came back to check in get a drink, or a snack. He was definitely all boy, but for the most part, no trouble. But then there was this one day. It was a really hot day and close to time to call Tony in for lunch and a little rest time. As I was heading to the front door, I saw Tony run by, then Wesley, and they ran back with the water hose. And I thought they were going to play in the water. No. The grass was on fire. They were dousing it with water, stomping on it, and poor Glenda just standing there with her hands over her mouth. Here's how the explanation of what happened went. Well, you see, there was this tarantula on the sidewalk, and we were throwing rocks at it so it would go away because it was crawling to the house. Then this one rock, when it hit the sidewalk, made a spark, and that flew all over the grass, and the grass caught on fire. Now, Tony had an arm and could throw pretty hard, even though he was little, but I wasn't buying it, so I asked where the gas smell that was coming from. The answer? That's how tarantulas smell when they burn up. Back in the 80s, Tony was really into the biker look. That curly hair was long, and he wore a black leather cap like Marlon Brando and Rebel Without a Cause. Black leather vest, collar, and wrist cuff with spikes, the whole 9 yards. Well, he moved into the house next door to my ex and me. The morning after he moved in, we heard people upon the yard talking, and my ex nearly lost his mind, ranting about the Hell's Angel that had moved in. I recognized Tony, but I didn't say anything, but just walked over and gave Tony a big hug and a kiss on the cheek. When I got back home, that's when my ex really came unglued, to my delight. I finally told him who Tony was and reminded him about that whole book by the don't judge a book by the cover thing. I rather enjoyed humbling him just a tad, and I have no idea why our marriage didn't work out. Okay, this is from Guy Lambert. Memories from Guy Lambert. I am in later 50s, and this might sound childish, but I remember playing hide and seek with Pete and Tony. I would sneak out of my house and play with them. I would be hiding, and someone would yell that my stepdad was looking for me, but I wouldn't answer because we were playing hide and seek. Then I'd get worried and take off running for home. I'd get into the house and into my bed before my stepdad got back into the house from looking for me. I still got a whooping. He knew I was out and not in bed the whole time. Then when Tony took over the auto body business, I lived closer, so I would hang out there all the time and visit with Tony. Yes, and hanging out with him in his bedroom listening to AC/DC, Leonard Skinner, and more of his favorite groups. Guy was sorry he couldn't be here. He was on shift tonight. He also called to say he had fond memories of hanging out a few times at Tony's apartment, and one time he called and asked Tony what he was doing. Tony said he was going to the races, so Guy met him there, and they had a good time. Me and Tony and Adam Wise went to 84 Texas Jam at Cotton Bowl, at the Cotton Bowl. I Googled it just now. There were 70,000 people that attended. Well, we get there, and Tony takes off, and I'm like, we are never going to find him. And we made no plans. So at the end of the concert, all the people started trying to get to their cars. I remember we were running around and trying to beat the traffic, and all of a sudden this person runs up beside me, and guess who? There's Tony, looking at me and smiling and laughing. I still don't know how he found us that night, but I have told this story many times. I went by and talked to Tony at the shop a few weeks ago. It had been a while since I'd talked to him. Glad I got to see him. Rest in peace, Tony. Rocky. Schumer? Boomer's on. Let's say come up here with me. My Tony story. Tony and I became best friends at 8 years old. Around the same age, he used to shoot spitballs at the teacher. And believe it or not, he taught me as well. My best memory was at 10 years old. We were coming home from an out-of-town baseball game with his parents, and Tony got sick. As we were coming home, I told Tony to lay on me. I will never forget the moments with him. He was a best friend. He will truly be missed. Paul Gibson, Boomer.
Right on.
Tony and I had gotten a job at the new pizza place in VA. I know my girls have laughed about this, the name of the pizza place, and y'all know what it is. Pizzas R Us. When it first opened, it was a very busy place. One night, Tony and I were working together to make the pizzas. We had started telling stories and goofing off to make the time go by. A lady came in to pick up a to-go order, and the counter staff were out in the dining area, cleaning the tables and taking orders out. So Tony and I were the only ones behind the counter, and we were busy making pizzas. But we were also talking and laughing, telling each other stories and going over gossip. I say the girls gossip. The lady raises her voice to get our attention, and that triggered the giggles. She was not a nice lady, very rude. I checked on her order and it wasn't ready yet, and she wasn't happy. We went back to making pizzas and giggling. That must have pissed her off more, and she made some kind of comment loud enough to hear for us to hear, like, if those two weren't back there goofing around, my pizza might be ready. That threw me and Tony into trying to hold back hysterical laughter. I'm sure she could see our shoulders shaking. Finally, Tony put a pizza in the oven and hers was ready. He grabbed it with the pizza pliers and brought it to the prep. As he was lowering it to the surface, he touched it with his finger and burned it. He dropped the pizza only 2 or 3 inches to the counter, and it made a loud noise, but it didn't hurt the pizza, but pulled the trigger on this lady. She started shouting at us to quit fooling around and demanded to speak to the manager. Tony and I were almost crying. We were trying hard not to laugh. The manager came and Tony settled her down. I think she got her pizza half price just to get her out of there. We got a reprimand from the manager and moved on, and it was a good night. Jet egg pickles. Andre? Well, this is what Andre said. On one Friday night, Tony came by the house to pick me up so we could hang out and cruise around town. While we were cruising the drag, as we call it, we spotted some of our other friends hanging out at the gas station. So we pulled in to see what everyone was doing, and while we were sitting in the car, another car pulled in behind us. All of a sudden, the car that was pulling in behind us turned on some police lights. And Tony looked at me, and I said, it was the cops. Tony just stepped on the gas, and we came flying out of the gas station, headed out toward Texaco. As Tony and I were looking in the mirror, we noticed that the car with the police lights was following us. Tony just put his foot on the floor, and we outran the police car. We ended up going to Weston and cutting back across to Anna. As we were coming back into Van Alstyne, we pulled back into the gas station and got out of the car and started talking to our friends. They were telling us about how we flew out of the gas station when that car turned on the police lights. They never did tell us who it was that was chasing us. So in a few minutes went by, and all of a sudden, that car flew into the gas station with the police lights on. Tony and I both were running to his car to take off again. But someone said, it's just Andrea and her dad in an unmarked police car. Now, with that said, I always had a great time hanging out with my brother Tony. I remember another time when we went to a football game, and we were having fun messing with this guy, and he started chasing us. As I was running between the cars, I got too close to one of the cars, and my pants got caught on the blinker light and ripped it out of the car. After that, we took off and noticed that my hip was hurting and burning. We went back to Tony's and come to find out, when I had ripped the blinker out with my pants, it also cut me pretty good. But that's just part of being a boy. There were a ton of good stories that I can tell you. Tony was the first person to come up to me when I first moved to Van Alstyne in the 2nd grade. I just knew from that point forward we were going to be friends. Tony was so kind, thoughtful, and generous to everyone he came around. When I was a little kid, I wanted a brother, and when I moved to Van Alstyne, I found my brother, and his name was Tony Beard. So, to have someone in your life who loves you unconditionally is a blessing. My brother will live forever in my heart, just as all of you will. Love y'all with all my heart and soul. My friend Tony. I'm going a little out of order here. I'm going from the most recent story, June 2024, back to 1977. A good friend of mine from work needed something done to her husband's car. Anyone knows that if you need car body work, there was only one place to go, and that was to see Tony. A close friend, someone at the grocery store, family member would hear, go see Tony if they needed a dent fixed or more. Anyway, Mindy knows how special Tony is to me, so she asked me to meet her at Tony's shop. I got there earlier than the time that she said so Tony and I could catch up. Tony never was too busy to chat and catch up about the fam, his kids and mine. Mindy got there, and as Tony had mentioned, he was afraid of, due to the computer part that needed to be fixed, he couldn't fix. He told her that he couldn't fix it. He was so worried she'd be mad. And I said, well, you come first. If she's mad, I'm done with her. But she was not mad and understood and trusted Tony more than anyone to look at her car. So I hugged him and told him I love him. That he knew. Okay, I moved here in the 5th grade. Somehow I was immediately accepted by this great group of kids in Mrs. Willard's and Mrs. Hamner's classes. I mean, yeah, I felt awkward. I found out that there was another kid that was an only child, Tony. Then my grandma got acquainted with the room mothers. She was welcomed with open arms by the other mothers. It felt like then and now we were all a big family. Fast forward to 7th or 8th grade, I think we had Miss Leafy Denton for 2 years in a row for English. She was an older lady at this point. Keep in mind, Tony could be aggravating to teachers, just like his friends. I'm guessing, but I never knew for sure, that the summer between 7th and 8th grade, I think she went to like some kind of teacher workshop. Because when she, in 8th grade, came back, one day she asked us, she said, okay, everybody get your homework out. We're going to grade, this page 25, whatever. Tony says, Miss Denton, you didn't assign us any homework. And she goes, oh, okay. And believed him. I was going to say, believed him, and so then we didn't have homework. He got away with something. So then the next day, he didn't try it. He's smart, just like we've said, he's smart. He didn't try it the next day. The next time he tried it, he said, Miss Denton, you didn't assign us any homework. So she looked at me, and I was sitting up here on the front row, of course I was. Right there on the front row, and he says, Greta, Miss Denton says, Greta, did I assign homework last night? I said, yes, Miss Denton, you did. And I was afraid Tony might be mad, but he was not. And he got in a little bit of trouble. But then she turned around to kind of to the side like this, and she goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Before she responded to Tony. Our class of 1985 and several others have made a commitment now and forever to be present for Tony and for Barbara. I'm sorry. It just comes automatic, say Tony. For Barbara and for the girls, Bridget and Brooke. I looked in my annual, and here are a copy of the notes that Tony wrote in the annual. Greta, to a very nice girl that I've known for a long time. I hope you do good in the future because you're always happy. Tony. Greta, to a nice girl I like and I've enjoyed going to school with through the years. I hope I will go to school with you for a long time to come. You are sweet and have many, many friends. I hope you stay that way. Good luck for the years to come. Tony. Greta, to a nice girl, I like you for a friend. Remember when we used to say that? Just like you for a friend, Jason. To a nice girl, I like you for a friend. Stay nice, and you will always have friends. That was a philosopher, your friend Tony. This is a note from Barbara. I want everyone to know that Tony is a Christian. He believed in God. He prayed to God. He was funny. There are a lot of funny stories with him in it, but he was more than that. I remember all the times he walked hand in hand with his dad, Jimmy. One time as a toddler on the balcony at our house, and then later repairing cars and taking care of him at Meadowbrook. He was a wonderful son to me. He would come to my house, we would eat supper and watch Jeopardy daily. Tony would take a little cat nap and then get up and say, I'm going to go lay down. I'll see you in the morning. Tony had so many friends, as you can tell by all the people who are here today and who reached out and shared fond memories. To Tony Beard, his friends were more important than all the money in the world. Thank you for your time and your friendship to my son. If anybody would like to come and share a story, please come up this time.
On behalf of the Yost family and the Tate family, and a couple brothers of mine, Randy Trevino and Rusty Rust Wilcox. You have my condolences and my love for his family and the people he cared about. I met Tony like my freshman year in this sweet little town, and I was from a big school, big crowd, and anyway, make a long story longer, we were both freshmen. Me and Randy didn't know nobody for nothing, and really no one really gave a thought about getting to know us. So we're on our own, trying to get in where we fit in. And first day, Tony come walking up and befriended me in a, in a real befriend way. Nothing fake, nothing plastic, and he wasn't trying to clown on me or, I don't know, push me into a box. He made me feel accepted and welcomed. He knew I felt awkward and I felt like out of place and I didn't want to be here just because I was just a kid and a spoiled kid. And he let me know that it's going to be all right. And from that day forward, he got to know me and got to know I wasn't some sissy or some twist off, me and my brother Randy, which I ran around with. And he was like maybe 5 levels above a big brother could be. And we're not blood kin at all. We're just 2 people that befriended each other and became friends. And anyway, that was something about Tony. He was never fake. and he was never negative. And the minute he saw a friend down and out, or having problems dealing with your random everyday life problems, or family problems, which I had, he would look at me and smile, and just wink and say, hey, don't sweat the small stuff, remember Richie? And I'd be like, yeah, it's hard to always keep that in mind when things are so hard in your face. And I never forgot that, and I adopted that at a young age to tell my little brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, to not sweat the small things. You know, it's going to be irie and okay, whatever problems they're going through. And it seemed to help them, and it helped me to say that and remember Tony for teaching me that. We weren't angels. We were pretty rowdy, and we didn't go with the cut of the cloth of your normal small town. And we stood out, but we weren't hung to our bullies in any way. We looked like it, but we weren't. And we always took up for the people that couldn't take up for their own self, or was just too scared to take a punch if they deserved it. And I got a story about him and I, because we were bandmates. I was in the 9th grade, and I believe he was a junior. And it was the first band, garage band I ever had. And he sang, and he's a good singer. His lyrics are kind of dark, but my guitar playing was dark, and my art was dark as well. So we boogied with each other on that vibe. And there's many a nights that we was just anywhere, school, doing chasing the chicks around this town, and doing the lap or the loops, whatever you want to call it. And then we just pull over and we'd free jam, you know, between musicians. Free jamming is just picking up your instruments or whatever you got and just go with the flow and vibe on the next musician's thoughts and melodies. And anyway, I remember one time at my house where we could only jam at my house because none of the other parents could stand our heavy and fast and out there heavy metal music, okay? But my mom, sitting right there, bless her heart, she was so, such a good mom and such a patient mom that she would let me and my friends rock it out, you know, all day, all night, and just jam until it got too annoying and we had to break it down and leave. But every time Tony would come knocking on the door, I'd tell my mom, I gotta split, I gotta take off for a little while. And she's like, you can't. You're grounded, or you're in trouble with your father, or you've just been pissing me off all day. And I'm like, but Mom, I gotta go. Tony wants me to roll with him. He wants to talk, and he needs a friend that rides shotgun with him on something that I won't know about till I get in the car and I can't say yes or no, so I gotta go. And she's like, who? Which Tony? And I said, Tony Beard, Mom. They're like, oh, he's all right. Go ahead. You got a couple hours and that's it. And I don't want no calls from the police at all, or you'll never roll with him again when you need him to be with him, or he needs you to be with him at that moment. And I was like, thanks, Mom. And that's something about Tony. He was really real with my old man, who was a hard man, but a fair man. Local law enforcement all my life and a soldier all my life. And my mom would let my band jam in my little room, which wasn't much room at all. We couldn't fit the drum set in there, so the drummer was forced to play whatever was on the table. He'd play on the table, empty paint cans and 5-gallon paint jugs. He always had his sticks with him. So he just beat the crap out of a lot of things in my room, my dresser, whatever he could use to change the tone. Rusty Wilcox played bass. He had a big old bass rig, and it took up part of my room. I had a small guitar rig, and I had like a few guitars hanging around and a big Viking table. So we had barely any room to jam like musicians like to jam when they're starting to write. So we pretty much, you know, got along where we could get along. Well, anyway, I was playing my guitar, I just got through putting some fresh strings on my guitar, and I was so excited to jam with Tony and the rest of the boys that I didn't snip off the ends of my wire on my machine heads, which holds the strings. Anyway, I tried to fold them back the best I could, but like I said, they were waiting for me to tune up and change strings, that I just tuned up and started jamming. And when we start free jamming, it's nothing that we pre-wrote or decided to do. It's just the vibe that come on from each musician that's putting in the free jam. And Tony would whip out his lyrics out of his pocket, all folded up, and start throating and singing with all his heart. Now, we couldn't afford a PA system, so he had to scream and yell levels louder than a normal person would have to sing if they had a PA system, because it's amps jamming. So not only does my mom have to deal with chainsaws and heavy deep bass booming from my room, she had to deal with some handsome kid screaming at the top of his lungs so we could hear his lyrics. And while the pictures rattled in our hallway and falling down quite often, she never did cause no fuss with my boys or with Tony screaming his butt off. And anyway, like I said, we were jamming, and I was throwing down in this all real close quarters area. I turned around real quick, and he was head banging, and he got a little bit too close to me, and I accidentally poked his eye with one of my guitar strings, and it was like the heavy E, which is the thickest one, you know? And it's, you know, it could mess a person up. It could blind a person for life. Anyway, I stuck him pretty well. He stuck himself pretty good, because I had no idea that he was headbanging right behind me. Anyway, I felt bad. Anyway, he kind of dropped to the ground for a minute, because it hurt him. I'm sure it did. And I picked him back up, and I started apologizing, because I immediately thought he was going to beat me up. You know what I mean? Because he's an older brother, and I'm a younger brother, and you know, I should know better, and whatever. Well, I got a chance to look at his eyeball, and yeah, it did him pretty good. He's kind of tripping, and I finally got to tell him, well, hey man, I'm sorry, let's go to the hospital, get you checked out. He's like, no, it's heavy metal. Don't sweat the small stuff. Let's keep on jamming. You got any Visine? I said, I got tons of Visine, son. He put some Visine in his eyes, put the sunglasses on, and stayed well away from me. He stayed over by the drummer, found a sliding glass door, and was just screaming his butt off. And I thought he was so tough and so bulletproof and just ready-made musician, vocalist, whatever he does. And I admired that. And I finally got the chance to tell him to not sweat the small stuff whenever I moved us to a different location to jam, and not free jam, but to work on tunes that we conjured up ourselves. And the place where we could put the drum set and just headbang around and get down with it, and just rock out like we're on stage, or just slitting it out. And I wouldn't tell him where it was. I just said, I got a new place for us to jam, please come and jam, and I promise I won't, you know, jam an eye socket out of your forehead, and it's all good. And it's gonna be a lot better than my room or at my house. And he's like, bet, come pick me up. And I'm like, all right, cool. So we picked him up. An employee at a funeral home at the time worked for a while for him, and it's called Fletcher's Funeral Home. And we picked him up, had the whole band with us, had the drum gear, everything crammed in there. We're excited to finally jam in a place with decent acoustics and a PA system. I mean, a PA system where he could sing comfortably and not strain or blow his voice out, and you could hear the type of vocalist that he truly was. And picked him up, and I wouldn't tell him where we were going. He was just happy that we were all together and we were in good spirits. And then we pulled up to this property, here, right here, Fletcher's. And he's like, yo, man, what are we doing here? Picking somebody else up, or what's happening? I'm like, no, man, we got the keys to the back door. And this is where we're gonna rehearse. And it's right here in this room. This pew was in the middle, and at the time it was decent, and it was nice and pleasant, and a nice acoustics. And like I said, it had a PA system. And I won't forget jamming in this place maybe 3 times a month for maybe 6 or 8 months before we were in our separate ways. And he got together with some other quality musicians that had better places and better equipment, and just had the time to be with him while I was in another band and I worked part-time. But it was the coolest and the rawest free jams in my house and in this property, in this lobby here. I'll never forget. And seeing Tony, this pew was a lot skinnier. And it was, it was just tall and skinnier, and you could push it over if you had to. But anyway, the mic was scabbed onto the wood like that, and you couldn't pull the mic off. It had a cable run through. You had to do some magic tricks just to get it free from the pew. So he was so cool. He would sing his lyrics from the pew like it was, like an everyday thing. But when he'd get crazy and feel the vibe, he would start rocking the pew because he just wanted to get down. And next thing you know, the pew is off of his foundation bracket, and he's holding it up and down like one big microphone, jamming and smiling, and got his lyrics taped onto the pew, and it was just so cool. And it was so real, and it was a good experience, and my family and I were going to miss him dearly, and I hope to join him in heavenly distance when it's my time. And that's my story about my brother Tony. He didn't have to make time for me or even try to befriend me, but he did, and I'm glad he did, because it showed me how to do the same. And I do it, and I never stop doing it. And I always think of him. And God bless y'all, for sure.
Me and Tony and Jason, y'all don't look at those pictures because I don't know what my hair situation was. We've known each other since we were 4 or 5 years old. That was my sister that blamed Tony for trying to burn down the backyard. There's so many stories I could tell. Some of them Barbara probably don't even know about, so I don't need to tell. But there are 2 or 3 that come to mind. One of them, Daddy had a car lot here in town, and back then the policeman would just buy a car from Daddy. I mean, you could outrun them. It wasn't that big a deal. But by doing that, they knew us, the kids. I mean, van was small back then for sure. And one policeman, John Grant, I used to always ride my bike over to Tony's. Jason would be there, and then we'd run uptown. We'd be terrorizing the neighborhood. But for some reason, I had a little Honda 50, and I rode it over. And I just remember Mama saying, because I was begging her to drive it over there, you can ride it, but you go there and you don't go anywhere else. Well, Tony should have sold cars for Daddy, because he could talk you into anything. The threat of the whooping when I got home was nothing. He could overpower that. So we're of course he talked us in, and it didn't take that much to talk me into it. But we we kind of go out, we're driving around, we're actually in front of where Gail Flannery lives, right there on the railroad tracks, and I'll be dang, I look over, and there's John Grant in the police car. So Tony's, Tony, go, gas it. So we take off, and we're going around back to his house, and sure enough, and of course Tony's doing this, and I'm doing this. And when we get there, we just park the mini bike and start walking to the house like nothing. And I just remember John was eating us out. And Tony, Tony was pretty quick. He came up with one or two little reasons as to what we were doing. And luckily we got out of it alive. I don't know how, but we did. But there was another time when us as kids growing up at that time, Evel Knievel was a big deal. So we jumped, we had ramps built all the time. We were always jumping stuff. And we would always go by the railroad tracks, and back then it kind of watered out. It went down 6 or 8 feet. It seemed like it was 30 or 40 feet. So it would go down, go up, and we would build ramps and kind of jump off in there. Well, this new kid, poor kid, he moved in, and our bikes were hodgepodge of all different kinds of parts, probably because we broke this and that and had to just put it all together. Well, this kid had a brand new, it was like some kind of Western motif on his bicycle with a banana seed and streamers. And it was like, oh, we got some fresh meat. So of course, Tony, I was pretty scared to jump this where we jumped. We would kind of come in and you jump, and then where that went down, you were pretty far up there. Well, this kid, we finally talked him into it, and he goes down, and that poor kid, he got to the end and lets go of his handlebars and everything. He's just trying to figure out how to crash and not die. And I mean, it was all over the place. And as soon as he was bawling, he gets up, and here's Tony. Man, you almost had it. This kid, he was having no part. I never saw that kid again. I don't know if he was visiting, or he moved in and moved straight out. I never saw him again. But there's so many, we were either me. Either I was at Jason's or Tony's, or he was with me. We were always together, and we went to go talk about Texas Jam. I'd forgotten all about this one, but we didn't get. We went to go get Van Halen tickets, and back then, there of course there was no internet, or there wasn't even a Ticketmaster, I don't think. You'd go and you'd get these ticket stubs, which would then put you in line as a lottery thing to get tickets. And we had to go the night before to get these ticket stubs. And it turned into, it was for a Van Halen concert, so it wasn't Bible school. So it turned into a wreck. It was stuff going on, and somehow there was a bunch of us. Jason was there, and there was 4 or 5 of us that went down there, and we all, just like at Texas Jam, we all got separated, except somehow me and Tony stayed together. And we weaved through all this stuff, and there were these people throwing beer bottles and at cops, and we end up in the very front of the line somehow at the end. And by this time, there's helicopters with spotlights and everything else. And they called it off. And because it got so rowdy, we ended up at the front of the line. Somehow, me and Tony Beard. And because we just keep worming through and kind of ended up at the front, and then it was all over. But Tony was, as we got older, and he gets family, we have family, you get kids. You kind of get so busy in your own life that it's hard to meet up and hang out like you used to, but every time we would end up over there, it's like you never skipped a beat. And, you know, he's one you would always call your best friend, no matter, you know, what happened. You know, he was just that way. Whatever you needed, he'd help you with, and if he couldn't, he'd tell you. So, he'll be missed, there's no doubt about it.
I'm not sure I'm pulpit material. I'm sitting down here. My name is Stephen Harrell. Not many of you know me, but I am Shannon's brother, one of Shannon's brothers from Arkansas, Brooke and Bridget's uncle, one of their uncles from Arkansas. And I'm here repping for the Arkansas family, pay our respects to Tony. We've known Tony since Shannon first brought him home to Arkansas to meet the family. And we're probably not the easiest family to come meet. And the truth of the matter is, now that I have children that are doing that same thing, and I think back, you know, anytime one of my kids brings somebody home, there's always someone in the family that doesn't like it. And sometimes nobody likes it. But when Shannon brought Tony home to meet the family, everyone liked it. And that's from the start. Everyone liked him. Everyone respected him because of the person he was. And they were married in our family's home, our parents' home, and we were together on holidays and special events. And Tony was always there, and he was one of those kind of people when they walked in the room, you know, bright and dead. And it was a pleasure, and we had great conversations. And I don't want to say everybody liked him. I mean, it was, you know, parents, siblings, and even our kids when our kids were growing up. And but every time we were around Tony, conversation always led to the Dallas Cowboys. And that's because we were Arkansas Dallas Cowboy fans. But the difference is Tony is a Dallas Cowboy fan. So he was our sort of inside person to find out, you know, what's going to happen with the Cowboys this year. And so Tony, you know, he knew it all. He would tell us, and we would listen, and we would beat it up. And then the season would come around, and then we'd see Tony later, and if he didn't quite work out this year, but next year. And that happened a few years, as you all know, I'm sure. And finally I realized Tony had caught this, or had this disease that seems to have infected Cowboy fans all across Texas. That's that disease that causes you to overestimate how good the Cowboys are. And, I mean, be honest. Who in here, raise hands, who else has that disease? Be honest, everybody. But anyway, that was always a good time with Tony. And Tony was always really great with our kids. And I told Shannon, I have a screensaver on the computer and it flashes old pictures across the screen, you know, 1,000 of them. But this week, after this news came out, there was a picture that flashed across, and it was Tony at one of the holiday gatherings. He's laying on the floor, and there are 2 young boys down there with him. And that was a common sight at those gatherings. Tony would just befriend the young kids, play with them, and I and the other kids' parents, we'd be in the kitchen drinking beer and said, Tony, anything? It's like, nope, no problem. No, I'm good. And, you know, that has, his personality is infectious, and it had an impact not only on us, but on those kids. Because, and I know that by anecdote I'm going to tell you. This week, my 20-year-old son was home, just coincidentally, and when I was talking to him about Tony, his reaction was, man, Tony's gangster. And some of you, I'll say this, Tony's gangsta. That's what he said. And some of you might think, well, is that a compliment or what is? But in the vernacular of my 20-year-old son, I mean, that's right up here. That's about as high a compliment as you can get, particularly if you're not a rapper or a celebrity. And so the point is, I mean, Carter had not seen Tony probably for a decade, maybe not that long, but that was his impression. And I think that's fair. And Barbara, I know Tony was a great son, and your loss is just horrific, and he's just irreplaceable. And Brooke and Bridget, we all know he was a great father, and your loss is horrific because he will be irreplaceable. But Tony was also, and I think that's been demonstrated here by everyone who spoke, a good man. A good man because of his character, his sincerity, his genuineness. He said what he's going to do, and he does what he says. And a lot of men in this room, every one of you, know how important it is to have friends and people you know and be associated with that are good men. And when you lose one of those men in your life, it too is irreplaceable, because there's just a limited number of those good men. And when it happens under tragic circumstances like this, it makes it even harder. So, to wrap this up, Tony Beard, a good man, R.I.P. gangster.
Hello everybody, my name is Jason Sproul. I've got a favorite memory. I actually named my story. It's called Chunkin' Rocks. Y'all probably know where I'm going with this. I've known Tony for 52 years. We started kindergarten together in 1972, so there's a handful of us out there that are 52ers. Okay, we've known Tony exactly 52 years. You know, I'd be lying if I really and truly, the only two people I can remember from kindergarten were David Rodder and Eric Sam. So, but Tony was soon after, I promise you. My first recollection of Tony was, I don't know if Mom and Dad went out of town and Barbara was babysitting us, or I was staying with Tony, or we had planned it, but I spent the night with Tony when he lived over on Poor Hill up the street, on top of the hill, and I remember us playing hard. We got dirty, we got filthy, and Barbara jumped us in the bathtub. And then I can remember to this day it was a cool bathtub. It was a clawfoot bathtub, and she run real deep water, and it was like we were swimming. And but that stands out in my mind for some reason. But after the rest is history. I mean, we there's a lot more bass and a lot more playtime. But the thing I really am taken back when I think about Tony is he was always chunking rocks. Anywhere we went, whatever we were doing, he was chunking rocks. He would pick out a target, pick up a handful of rocks, he'd take a rock, and he'd chunk it at something. It might be a fence post, it might be a street sign, it might be a beer can, it might be a bottle. If it could break, it was even better. Okay, so, but he was chunking rocks. And he even chunked at people sometimes. So he chunked at us every now and then. Make no mistake about it though, it was a competitive thing with Tony. He was gonna chunk a rock till he hit his target. He may sit there an hour chunking a rock at that same target, but when he hit it, he was done, and when he moved on to the next one. He had a determination, and that's where the competitive side come out with Tony. You could see it. He wouldn't stop. He chunked at things that moved. Squirrels, rabbits, birds. Believe it or not, I've seen him hit a bird before. Nothing was safe. I'm gonna back it up a bit. About 6 or 7 years old, we started Pee Wee baseball. And Alfred Loftus took on the task of coaching us. I'm gonna stop right there for just a minute and talk about Alfred. This is Tony tonight. Alfred taught us how to practice baseball. He taught us how to win. He taught us how to accept a loss. He held us accountable. He basically taught us the fundamentals of baseball, bar none. Thank you, Alfred, and Tony loved you so much. Anyway, so we're playing baseball now. And so you can imagine, after all those years of chunking rocks, what do you think Tony played? He was a pitcher. Tony could hit his spots. He'd been practicing for years. When I say hit his spots, Jim would frame his pitch, and I mean Tony could, drive a tackle with baseball. And on top of that, Tony threw hard and fast. He had a good arm. My daddy would, to this day, I hear my daddy say during the game, he'd been embarrassing. He'd be embarrassing me, but throw it like you live, Tony, hard and fast. I mean, over and over. So, 13, 14 years old is right before you go to high school, of course, and we had 2 Pony League teams. We were the youngest of the 2 Pony League teams. The other Pony League team was coached by the late Robin Tillett. And that team was bigger, stronger. I wouldn't say necessarily faster, but they were bigger and stronger, and bigger bunch of kids, and they were pretty confident. And this game meant something. We both had good records. They really thought they were going to put it on us. Well, that night, summer night, Tony was on. Now, I know we're just 13, 14 years old, but Tony was hitting his spots, and he was throwing hard and fast. Everybody knows what a no-hitter is. A no-hitter is when nobody hits the ball and gets on base. But you can walk people. You can put them on base with a walk 2 or 3 times, and it still be a no-hitter. Well, that night, nobody got on base. Tony was perfect that night. He threw a perfect game. And I remember that as long as I live. And I want to thank Tony for that moment. And it's a wonder. It's not a wonder because you watch him chunk rocks forever. And he hit anything. And that night was his night, and he made it our night. Like I say, I'll never forget it, and thank you, Alfred. I did a little research. Believe it or not, I did research. There's only, And the professional level has only been 24 perfect games to this day. And you all know how long baseball's been going on. The collegiate level, I believe there's only been 36 perfect games. So I looked at the college level, and from 1980 to now, there's 38 perfect games. So even at 13 and 14 years old, throwing a perfect game is a pretty good feat. So, Tony was a determined friend, a passionate friend. He'd do anything for you. Y'all heard it. In his obituary, the last line said, Tony gave it his all and everything he did. And he sure did. We're gonna miss Tony. I'm gonna miss Tony.
Before I do closing remarks, does anybody else have a story? The four things I value in life are my wife, my kids, my grandkids, and my childhood friends. I made a statement about a year or so ago when a text was going around that I grew up with some of the best childhood friends anybody could ever ask for. And that is the truth, without a doubt. My wife, a lot of times I'll start talking about my childhood friends, and she will back me up and talk about how great my friends were growing up. And Tony Beard was right there in the middle. Now, Barbara shared a story with me yesterday that I was unaware of. But the very first time Tony Beard saw me, I moved to Van Alstyne when I was 11 years old. And I moved 30 yards from Tony Beard. I looked out my back window and I could see Tony Beard's house. And so Barbara and Tony are driving by. And I'm out in my front yard doing something, playing with a ball or something. And Tony proceeds to tell Barbara, and I quote, "I bet that kid's a smart aleck." It's amazing that on a drive-by he could figure out I was smart. But my other side of that is it takes one to know one. Okay? But soon after, Tony did come over, just like he did everybody else talks about. It was him and Jason and Adam Wise came over. They'd just been on vacation to Colorado, and they had walking down the street, and I was out in the yard again, and they came up and started talking to me. And we got to wanted to play football, and we got to playing around. And so at that point began my childhood friendship with Tony and the rest of my childhood friends. Soon after that, Jason talks about baseball. Well, that's not my sport at all. But I love baseball, but I just couldn't play it. But Tony would invite me to come to baseball, and that's where I met, Chris and Paul and Andre and Eric and all the guys that, they played on that baseball team. And that core group began to form. And not too long after that, Chet, Clay, and Ronnie joined that group. We were all classmates, and we were all really good friends. And as I thought, how am I going to honor Tony, I was thinking, I spent 32 years in education as a profession. And I thought, what a better way to kind of pull all that together and to talk about the things that Tony Beard taught me. And what I realized, he not only taught me, he taught some of my fellow classmates as well, like running from the police. Now, I've got a similar story to Chris Allfield's, but the only difference was Tony was driving this time and I was riding behind Tony. I was telling Tony to stop, but Tony wasn't about to do it. The same result, Chris. We pull up out of the grass and there's John Grant sitting in front of Tony's house looking at us. Why he thought he could outrun him, I don't know. But he, like Jason said, it's a competition. He wants to see if he can outrun John Grant. One of the other things he taught me is the love of sports. He loved just about every sport there was. I mean, baseball, and I'm telling you, he could throw a ball so hard flames would come out behind it. It was impressive. He could throw a baseball. And I moved over here in the summer, and then after the summer, you know, football starts. And Tony said, hey, you want to play football? I'd never played organized sports at all. I mean, I'm 11 years old. I'd never played organized sports. Didn't know anything about it. And he said, come on. So I jumped in the car with him and Jimmy, and off we go, and signed up for football, and I started playing football. And for the next 40 years, I either play, coach, or officiate football. All because Tony Beard taught me the love of sports. And my kids probably wonder why I fell in love with NASCAR. I used to sit in Tony's living room with him and Jimmy Beard watching Richard Petty tear it up. Loved it. Basketball. Back in our day, everybody loved the Lakers with Michael Johnson, or Magic Johnson, thank you. Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Michael Cooper and all that. Nope. We like the Philadelphia 76ers with Dr. J. And we'd sit in his room and watch the 76ers play and cheer them on, and that's what we would do. But he taught me to love sport. He loved sports no matter what. And then rock chunking. Go back to rock chunking. Tony was a rock chunker. He taught me how to make money. We had a street light out in front of my house, and it's still there to this day. That street light's still there. Well, my dad's window faced that street light, and so he didn't like it. So he would pay Tony Beard to chunk rocks at that street light and knock that street light out. And he did it and I'm not so sure Tony didn't call the city to tell them that the light was broken so they would replace it and he could knock it back out again. And then also, we walked to and from school together in middle school every day. We'd walk to and from school every day. That's what we'd do. And on the way home, you know, after ball practice, school's over, we'd start out kind of together. But it wasn't too long after that Tony kind of drifted back just a little bit. And he'd be 10, 15 yards behind. And here they came, Jason. Rocks. He chunked rocks at me all the way home on a regular basis. Now don't worry, Barbara, he only bloodied me a couple of times. But that was on a regular basis. He taught me to sacrifice for my friends. I was helping him become that great baseball pitcher that he was. And then the last thing, he taught me how not to be a tough guy. Don't be a tough guy. If you've got a problem, if you're struggling, if you're having a hard time, go to one of your childhood friends, go to your family, go to whoever you need to and let them know. Let them know you're struggling. Don't hesitate and tell them everything. Tell them exactly how you feel. Tell them what you're thinking. Don't be a tough guy. Don't think just because I'm a guy I can overcome this. Or I'm a man, I'm not supposed to feel this way. Don't be a tough guy. You go express yourself. You go get the help you need. Because there are people around you that will help you. I love Tony. Every time I hear the name Tony, it brings a smile to my face and laughter in my heart. And I hope that all of you in the future, you hear the name Tony Street, and that's going to be kind of easy for you. But I hope it brings a smile to your face and a little bit of laughter to your heart. Tony was one of the best friends you could ever ask for. He would do anything and everything for you. Barbara wanted me to say thank you to everybody for all the phone calls, the stop-bys, the visits, food, and expressing your appreciation for Tony. My request is you don't stop doing that. Keep going by to see Barbara. Keep going by to see her. If you're in town, go by to see Barbara. If you're sitting around the house and you don't have anything to do, pick up the phone, call Barbara, check on her for me. We're going to try to do it as a classmates, like Loretta said. We're committed to try to do everything we can because, you know, Tony was her only child. However, she does know all of us are her kids too. We're all her kids too. And so take time to stop by and visit her. After the service, you know, Barbara's going to go home, and so anybody wants to go by and visit her may, that's okay. Like I said, you might want to spread it out. Go sometime next week or the week after to go visit with her. For everybody else, there will be a gathering out at Jason and Carla Sproul's house. It's 747 Hines Ranch Road. And for those of you who know the Sprouls, it's the old Sproul home place. House is different, but it's a Sproul home place. And so everybody's welcome to come out there. Some of you may not have felt comfortable to come up here and share a Tony Beard story, and that's okay. Go out there because you'll be amongst friends. And hey, I can stand up here all night and talk about Tony, I promise you. And so don't hesitate if you need to. You want to come out and visit and share some stories, boy, you'll have plenty of listening ears out there. I'd like to close with a prayer. Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we are so very grateful for the opportunity that our paths in life crossed that of our friend and brother Tony Beard. What a blessing he was to every life he touched. The friends, the family, he was such a wonderful person. And we would like to express our gratitude that we had the opportunity to get to know him, to love him as a son or a dad or a husband or a friend, especially that of a childhood friend. We ask that thou would bless Tony and comfort him at this time and let him know that we will continue to take care of Barbara and the girls. And we are thankful that he and Jimmy are together because Jimmy was his best friend. We're grateful for just the opportunity that we've had to have him in our life. Please bless us. Comfort Barbara and Brooke and Bridget and all of those who call Tony a friend. And let them know that he is okay now, that he is safe, and that he's in your loving arms. And these blessings we thank thee and ask thee for in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
So you think you could tell heaven from hell, blue skies from pain? Can you tell a green field from a cold steel rail, a smile from a veil? Do you think you can tell? Did they get you to trade your heroes for ghosts, hot ashes for trees, hot air for a cool breeze, cold comfort for change? Did you exchange a walk on she called my name. I think it's gonna rain. Oh, when I
I've been around this world, yet I see no end. All shall fade to black again and again. This storm that's broken me, my only friend, yeah. In this river, all shall fade to black. In this river, ain't no coming back. In this river, all shall fade to black. Ain't no coming back. Withdrawn, I'll step away just to find myself. The door is closed again, the only one left. This storm that's broken me, my only friend, yeah. In this river, all shall fade to black. In this river, ain't no coming back. In this river, all shall fade to black. In this river, all shall fade to black. In this river, ain't no coming back. In this river, all shall fade to black. Ain't no coming back. In this river, all shall fade to black. In this river, ain't no coming back. In this river, all shall fade to black. In this river, all shall fade to black. In this river, ain't no coming back. In this river, all shall fade to black. Ain't no coming back. Try to be serious. Try and get your life. Then on the first chance, you revisit hell. Try if you can to fit in with them, but you can't do it. You are what you are. Speaking from burning cars, bloodshed stars who realize chaos AD, army in siege, thought of alert. I'm sick of these. Inside the state, war is created. No man's land. What is this shit? Refuse. Resist. Refuse. Chaos AD, disorder unleashed, starting to burn, starting to leak. Silence means down, stand on your feet. Inner fear, your worst enemy. Refuse.